What is Asara B'Tevet? We have this date on the calendar, the 10th of Tevet, of which the Avudraham writes that if Asara B'Tevet would fall on Shabbat, which mathematically it cannot do, but if it would fall on Shabbat, we would fast on Shabbat. Wow. Such a crazy thing. If Tisha B'Av falls on Shabbat, we move it to Sunday. If the 17th of Tammuz falls on Shabbat, we move it to Sunday. Tzom Gedalia, move to Sunday. This day, we would keep and fast on Shabbat. In fact, when it falls on a Friday, which it does do, we fast on Friday up against Shabbat. Even if it makes our Shabbat a little bit less besimcha. So what is Asara B'Tevet? Why is it such a big deal? Why is this so important to us? So, in order to understand Asara B'Tevet, first of all, let's look at the days around it. The truth is, at different times in history, Asara B'Tevet was one of 3 fast days that were in a row. They were consecutive. Today we don't fast them consecutively, but each of them at a different time was a fast day. The 8th day of Tevet is the day of the Targum Shivim, the translation of the rabbis. What happened? The Greeks, much later in history, the Greeks wanted to be able to see what we had in the Torah. And therefore they took 70 Chachamim, they locked them in separate places, and they said, translate all of your Torah into Greek so we can read it too. What's the big deal? I mean, today we've got Art Scroll and Quran and all different, you can go on Google and translate Torah. What's the big deal of having Torah translated? Here's the problem. First of all, whenever something is translated from its original language, it loses part of its beauty, part of its special wording. When an author writes an essay or a book, they choose specific words that try and depict a certain feeling, and translation could lose that particular feeling that's being built up. In books of Rav Moshe Feinstein, the Halacha books, Igros Moshe, he writes, please do not translate my Igros Moshe into English. Leave it in my language so that exactly what I'm trying to portray is in there. But that's not even the problem. The problem is that when people are looking for things to find wrong, of course, we know we can't. The Greeks wanted to be able to see what was in the Torah so they could find what's wrong with Klal Yisrael. They could find what it says it's insulting, or it says that we don't keep. And that's not okay. The Targum Shiv, the translation of 70 Rabbanim, of 70 Chachamim, it opened up a door for people outside to look in at us judgmentally and find things that they don't like and become critics of Klal Yisrael. An amazing miracle happened that day. When they were locked in, they wrote translations. Each of the Chachamim thought to themselves, this word has to be translated carefully so it's not insulting to somebody else. And the craziest thing is that if they changed any wording, Hashem made a miracle that all 70 changed the exact same word to the exact same thing. The following day on the calendar, on the 9th day of Tevet, is the yahrzeit of the passing of Ezra HaSofer. We tend not to know a whole lot about Ezra until later on when we learn Jewish history. But it says about Ezra HaSofer that he was as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. He was the next Moshe Rabbeinu in history. Moshe was the great leader who took us out of Mitzrayim, and Ezra is the great leader who rebuilt the second Beit HaMikdash. He brought us back after Galut Bavel. He helped us rebuild, and in a certain sense was greater. Moshe took us all from slavery. We were all together as one. But after the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash, we hated each other. We were spread out. The Purim story happened. We couldn't stand one another. And after Ezra HaSofer brought us all together, we were intermarried. We were assimilated. We lost our connection to Judaism and to Klal Yisrael and to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem above. And Ezra brought us all together. He sat in the streets and cried with us. And he rebuilt the Beit HaMikdash and he established 10 rules that would help us continue through Galut if we ever had to, which is how we live today. Because of what Ezra HaSofer did. Why is he called HaSofer? Because he changed the alphabet back to the original letters that were on the Luchot, not the ones that they used for Moshe. Moshe wrote 2 different sets of letters. He used those letters because they helped us connect better, they helped us read, they helped us come into modern times. Ezra reestablished the Jewish people. Also, it's important to remember that even though he rebuilt the second Beit HaMikdash, there were things that weren't there, like the Aron never returned. A certain level of Kedusha never returned. And Ezra represents the sadness of the second Beit HaMikdash being empty. Now, the 10th day, Asara B'Tevet. What happened in Asara B'Tevet is that Nebuchadnezzar and his troops surrounded Yerushalayim. They laid siege to the city for 30 months until they breached the walls and then destroyed the Beit HaMikdash. So what's the big deal? 30 months after that, we were fine, we were great. When I was in school and we weren't behaving in class, our teacher would write on the board as a way to warn us. He would write recess. And then, if we continued to misbehave individually, they would get up and write one name at a time on the board. Of course, my name never ended up on the board because I was an awesome student. But it was a warning. When the word recess went up on the board, it meant we better behave because otherwise we're going to start losing recess. I had another teacher who has the whole class. If we were misbehaving, she would get up and write R. And then if we were still misbehaving, she would write E. These were warning signs. And at some point of being warned, we realized, oh no! We have to stop and change. Asara B'Tevet was a warning. And we didn't change. We continued to hate each other. We continued to bother each other. We continued to throw the ways of Hashem away. We missed the message of do tshuva now. Asara B'Tevet is so important because it happens every day of our lives. There are messages Hashem sends us and says, do tshuva. Reach out, care about other people. Do something for others. Don't be stuck. And yet, we watch RECESS go on the board. And names go under it. And we sit there and say, I'll do tshuva later. That's not how we live. The Gemara tells us the reason for Churban Bayit, the reason the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, is that we didn't respect one another, which lines up with Ezra HaSofer, and it lines up with the Targum Shivim. It lines up with the world around us looking and trying to pull us apart. We didn't respect each other. So today, even if it was Friday, even if it was Shabbat, we would fast and remind ourselves to do tshuva and to care about everybody else. Imagine if the Kotel in Eretz Yisrael could talk to us and tell us how sad it feels that it's not rebuilt.
Together stand beside my stones to raise your voice in prayer. You ask, when will the gallows end? How much more can we bear? But sin has freedom still lives on. It lingers in your heart. How can you come back home to me while you remain apart? Together, you stood by her Sinai, my daughters and sons, forever. You must stand together forever as one. Together, you stood by our Sinai, B'nai Abraham. Forever, we must stand together forever as
My friends, today on Asara B'Tevet, we should think to ourselves that hopefully, please God, this is going to be the last Asara B'Tevet that we're going to need, because we now know how to do tshuva. We now know to take every opportunity and make a difference. Don't miss that opportunity. And that's why we're fasting. We're fasting so that this hopefully will be the end of this constant cycle and struggle of needing to do tshuva, needing to be close to Hashem, needing to reach out to our brothers and sisters, Achenu B'nai Yisrael, and say we're together. We feel each other's pain and we feel each other's joy. And hopefully next year, Asara B'Tevet will be a simcha. Tisha B'Av this summer will be a Yom Tov. We'll dance and sing in the streets of Yerushalayim.